I'm now going to begin the question and answer sessions. If you can settle down, please, so the Syed can hear the questions that are being asked. The number will shortly come up on the screen, and then you'll be able to send the questions through to that number thereafter. So the first question I have, Syed. Dear Syed, Assalamu alaikum, I hope you are well.
Alaykum assalam.
I wanted to ask for some clarification on a point you mentioned yesterday about ensuring that the income we earn is not used in ways that contribute to oppression. I'm finding it difficult to understand how this applies in the context of living and working in the United Kingdom. As taxpayers, a portion of our income goes to the government, and some of that may be used in ways we may not agree with, including foreign policy decisions such as military support abroad. Additionally, I work as a dentist within the NHS, which is a publicly funded system. I've also come across statements on social media from NHS-related accounts that seem to express support for Israel. Given that my income ultimately comes from public funds, and considering these wider concerns, I'm unsure how to view this from an ethical perspective. In situations where we don't have direct control over how funds are allocated, what would you advise? How should we approach this from an ethical and Islamical perspective? Jazakallah khair for your guidance.
أحسنتم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. This is a very valid concern that many people have. You live in a country, you pay taxes. A part of the taxes might go to projects, areas that we don't support. For instance, military support of Israel. That's something that we reject and we find unethical and immoral, and that is helping injustice. How do you navigate that? Number one, as a citizen in this country, you have to pay taxes. The law requires you to do that. Now, most of your taxes, they do go for domestic spending on schools, on roads, on infrastructure projects, on other projects. But a fraction of that does actually go to questionable areas, like military spending. In light of what we discussed yesterday, the Safwan al-Jamal principle, how do we apply that in our modern time? Here's one way to navigate that. If I live in this country and I pay taxes and I know a portion of my taxes is going to go to these questionable areas, I need to justify my presence in this country. How? The Ali ibn Yaqtin principle. How? Use your presence here to do good, to help your brothers and sisters. If you live in this country and you say, I have no choice but to pay taxes, and I know some of it is going to go to these questionable areas, how do I justify my living in this country? You can justify that by supporting your faith, by strengthening your community, investing in your community, investing in your schools, investing in your Husayniyas, by supporting your brothers and sisters around the world through social media, raise awareness. Support them financially when there is a disaster, humanitarian crisis. Advocate for their cause. Try to do something. As long as you're doing something for your faith, for your brothers and sisters, that would justify it. So if you work for the NHS, and the work that you're doing is halal work, you can receive that income. That income can be considered halal, even though the NHS may be involved with areas that we don't agree with. But how do I justify that? I do my part in supporting justice in the world. That way, this would be justified based on the Ali ibn Yaqtin principle. Remember, Ali ibn Yaqtin, being a minister, definitely would give some support to Harun al-Abbasi. But how did the Imam justify that and allow it? The Imam says, let's look at the greater good. You're not there for your personal interests. You're there to protect the oppressed. That justifies it. That's how I would apply the principle. Yes, if I'm doing nothing for my faith, nothing for my brothers and sisters around the world, then yes, we have a moral dilemma over here. That's an area where a number of our scholars would have an issue with.
Thank you, Syed. Another question here. Salam, Jazakallah for all your work. Inshallah, it is all accepted and our Imam is pleased with you. This world is full of distractions and sometimes we take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and generosity for granted. Are there any specific hadiths or Quranic verses that can strike fear into our hearts and humble us? For example, hadith of Salman talking to the dead.
We have distractions in this world. And sometimes we need something to remind us, to awaken us. The person who asked the question remembers Salman speaking to the dead. Salman was the governor of Madain in modern day Iraq. And the Prophet ﷺ had given him a sign. He told him, Salman, when your death approaches near, you're about to die, as a sign you will be able to speak to the dead. So he went to the cemetery, according to the report, and he spoke to a dead person. That dead person explained to him what happened to him. How my soul was taken away, how my family started to cry, how they put me in the grave, how my soul was taken to Allah for Allah to judge me. And so reading that really revives the heart. So what recommendation that I would have? First of all, brothers and sisters, I recommend you start with the Quran. Be familiar with the verses about the Day of Judgment. Read those verses and read the tafsir. Believe me, it makes you a better person. Surah Al-Hajj, the first verses. Allah says, O people, Ya ayyuhan nasu taqu rabbakum, inna zalzalata as-sa'ati shay'un azim. People, fear your Lord. You think the hour, the Day of Judgment is something to take lightly? It's something that's very serious. يَوْمَ تَرَوْنَهَا تَذْهَلُ كُلُّ مُرْضَعَةٍ عَمَّا أَرْضَعَتْ وَتَضَعُ كُلُّ ذَاتِ حَمْلٍ حَمْلَهَا وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى وَلَكِنَّ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ شَدِيدٌ. People, on that day you'll see a mother who's breastfeeding her child. Because of the fear of that day, she's going to forget her child. A mother who's pregnant will miscarry. And you see people drunk, but they're not drunk. So why are they acting that way? Because of the Day of Judgment. Read that verse. Let it interact with you, brothers and sisters. Now some people say, Syed, come on, why talk about the fire of hell and the Day of Judgment? Look, we people, believe me, without the threat of punishment, we just don't behave. You want the proof? Look at your police force. Let me ask you an honest question. If tomorrow the city of Manchester says, you're all good citizens, we trust you, you're going to do that which is safe, so we're going to pull the police force. No police tomorrow. Nobody's going to fine you, nobody's going to ticket you, no one's going to protect any businesses. You take care of your own selves. Honestly, what do you think will happen? Society will become jungle overnight, right? I would be scared to go on the road tomorrow if that were the case. Because I know most people will speed. They'll pass the red light. They're going to do some dangerous things. Without the threat of punishment, of fines, we don't behave. Few people do, but most don't. That's the reality. And Allah knows this about our nature. To motivate you, it's not enough just to tell you, be good, Allah will be pleased with you, you'll go to heaven. It's not enough. You need to also threaten people so they take life seriously. So read those verses in the Quran. I highly recommend them. Secondly, go to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. No one creates humility in your heart and fear in your heart with the love of Allah like Amir al-Mu'mineen. I want to share with you one passage. This passage really moves me. The Imam alayhi salam says, وَاعْلَمُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ أَنَّهُ لَيْسَ لِهَذَا الْجِلْدِ الرَّقِيقِ صَبْرٌ عَلَى النَّارِ. People, know that this tender skin of yours has no chance to stand the fire of hell. Then the Imam says, أَرَأَيْتُمْ جَزَعَ أَحَدِكُمْ مِنَ الشَّوْكَةِ تُصِيبُهُ وَمِنَ الْعَثْرَةِ تُدْمِيهِ وَمِنَ الرَّمْضَاءِ تُحْرِقُهُ. The Imam says, have you seen how weak you are? When a thorn goes into your skin, it's painful. You scream from pain. When you trip and fall and you hurt yourself. When you walk on the hot sand in the desert, you can't handle that, right? فكيف إذا كان بين طابقين من نار ضجيع حجر وقرين الشيطان. Now imagine if you're between layers of fire. On the one hand, a shaitan in hell is your qareen, is your partner. Imagine that, having to sleep next to shaitan in hell. And your bed is not a comfortable mattress. It's a rock that's glowing with heat. Again, this is not, to make you lose hope in the mercy of Allah. Of course, we have hope in the mercy of Allah. But sometimes you just need to awaken that heart. One final passage I would like to share from Amir al-Mu'mineen. It really awakens the soul. The Imam alayhi salam says, Ilahi rahamni idha inqata'a min ad-dunya athari. Oh Allah, have mercy on me when I'm long forgotten in this world. When there's no trace of me left. وَمَّحَا عَنِ الْمَخْلُوقِينَ ذِكْرِي وَصِرْتُ فِي الْمَنْسِيِّينَ كَمَنْ قَدْ نُسِي. I'll give you an example. Brother, do you know the name of your fifth grandfather? No. Do you know anything about his life? No. You see what the dunya does? Believe me, one day your name won't be remembered. You'll say, okay, but today with social media, I have a lot of clips of myself. Habibi, 100 years from now, you think people have the time to think about you and what you did? We're so busy with our own lives. Do we care about what our fifth grandmother did? We don't even know their name. The Imam says, Ilahi, when I'm long forgotten from this world, you have mercy on me. That awakens the heart. And then says, Ilahi, kaburat sinni, wa daqqa azmi, wa raqqa jildi. Oh Allah, I'm growing old. My bone is becoming frail. My skin is very tender. And my days are numbered, so you have mercy on me. I think these passages create that fear, inshallah. The purposeful fear. The purposeful fear.
Thank you, Syed. When I was younger, above the age of bulugh, I did not fast for a number of months, as my parents said I was too weak to fast. What can I do, or what should I do to make this up?
Number one, you have to do qada. So estimate those number of days that you missed. Let's say 5 years, times that by 30. Shahr Ramadan sometimes at 29 days. On the safer side, just multiply that by 30. So let's say you missed 5 years, times 30, 150 days, do qada. That's the first obligation. The second obligation is kaffara. If you didn't know that you had to fast, you just grew up in an environment, no one told you, you just didn't know. You didn't deliberately break your fast, you just didn't know. In that case, you don't have to pay kaffara. What if you did know that you had to fast, but your parents prevented you from fasting? I know cases of that. A 10-year-old girl, she wants to fast, her parents don't allow her. And she's too young to be able to defend her position. Now that she's older and she understands how the system works, and she understands that she must fast, what does she do in that case? In that case, if she really couldn't fast, so she did not deliberately break her fast, her parents forced her to break her fast, she doesn't have to pay kafara. All she has to do is what? She has to make up those missed days. Yes, if I knew fasting was wajib and I didn't have an excuse, in addition to that, I have to pay a kafara for each day, which is feeding 60 poor people. But in these two cases, there is no kafara that we mentioned. So just make them up if you fall under this category.
Thank you, Syed. Another question, short question is, Salam Syed.
Alaykum as-salam.
Why is there no harm in taking other people's intellectual property, similar to what you were referring earlier?
Why would that apply? See, the Imams have told us there is no harm. You can't harm other people. The type of harm depends on your social context. In every era, there are harms that society recognizes. And these can evolve and these can develop and transform. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, people didn't have a conception of intellectual property. The world was different. So if you borrowed an idea from someone, you took someone's statement and you used it. Someone invented something and you went and you replicated that invention. Society at the time did not see it as a right and hence did not see what you're doing as harm. Today the world has changed. Today the world has come to an understanding that we have intellectual property. You own ideas, you own inventions just like you own your house, right? When you own a house, you have rights. I can't use your house without your permission, right? Because it's something that you own. Today the world says inventions and ideas are owned by you. So you have a right to them. Now that society sees this as a clear right, assuming so, the law of no harm, according to a number of scholars, would apply. The law of no harm says you can't harm others. And if you're using their intellectual property without authorization, you are violating their right, and that's harm. It's intellectual harm, not physical harm. But intellectual harm is also prohibited because Islam says there is no harm in religion. لا ضرر ولا ضرار في الإسلام. That's how we apply that principle.
Thank you, Syed. Another question here. Can I ask about Uyan Akhbar Rida? Then how was it compiled? And who was the main companions of Imam Rida alayhi salam were who compiled the book? And how did Sheikh Sadiq receive it as well?
So Uyun Akhbar al-Rida is a very important work, primarily on the life of Imam Rida alayhi salam. The one who compiled it is Shaykh al-Saduq, rahmatullahi alayhi, who is the author of Man La Yahdharuhu al-Faqih, At-Tawheed, Khisal, and many other works. Shaykh al-Saduq, he basically gathered the hadiths about Imam al-Rida alayhi salam and he compiled them into this one book. So what were his sources? His sources were the companions of the Imams who had written the hadiths from Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. The Imam's companions would write books and they would basically document what they heard from the Imams. At that time, you had 400 main works. We call them the 400 usul in hadith, the 400 principles in hadith. So the companions of the Imam each would write a booklet about the Imam. I asked him this question, he answered this. We were in a gathering, someone asked him the following. We observed the following incident happen. As Shaykh al-Saduq had access to those books at that time. By the way, these books didn't survive, unfortunately. Out of the 400, only 16 survived. 384 of them went extinct. Because it was difficult to preserve books back then. It was difficult to copy them and replicate them. You don't have these copy machines that you have today. So a lot of them, unfortunately, we've lost. But did we lose their content? Mainly no. Why? Because hadith works like Al-Kafi by Al-Kulayni, like the works of Al-Saduq, they took their information and sources and hadiths from these 400 works. So most of it has been preserved for us. So Shaykh al-Saduq would basically find those copies, he would verify that they're authentic copies, and he would copy them. And he would organize them into chapters and books and chapters. So that's how he gathered it for us. And so you can already tell it was a very tedious process. They had to travel from village to village. They have to go after these books, make sure they have a legitimate copy. It was very difficult to preserve hadith, but may Allah bless them for the effort that they made.
Thank you, Syed. Another question here. Please can you explain the reasoning why we are not allowed to donate organs to non-Muslims after death, but can receive them from non-Muslims? Thank you.
Okay. I know this is a very sensitive subject. You can receive organs from non-Muslims, but you cannot, according to most scholars, donate organs to non-Muslims. Why? There's a few ways of looking at that. I'll share with you one or two. One of them is the following. You as a Muslim, you believe in Allah. You have to believe in Allah to be a Muslim. You believe in the Day of Judgment. You believe that certain sins are haram. Drinking, adultery. Doesn't mean every Muslim is going to abide by that, but at least you commit to not commit these sins as a Muslim. That's why if you ask any decent Muslim, tell him, are you allowed to drink in Islam? They'll tell you no. Okay, so why do some people drink? Okay, you know, some people, they slip and make mistakes, but at least I admit I shouldn't, right? Now, would you give your body part, essential body part, like a heart, to someone who may not recognize Allah? Someone who will use your body part to drink, to commit adultery, to do all these sins that Islam considers haram. Do you feel comfortable? If there are two people needing your organs, one is a Muslim and one is a non-Muslim, do you see why we give the priority to the Muslim? Because the Muslim recognizes the right of my Lord. The Muslim recognizes that I should do these things and should not do these things. That's why the priority goes to them. I don't want to give my organs to someone to enable them further to disobey Allah, to commit acts of injustice, to commit acts of immorality. It doesn't mean I'm judging fellow citizens. I coexist with them. I respect them as citizens of my country. But to give my vital organs to them is where it becomes problematic. You see the moral dilemma? If you still struggle with that, let me give you another example. Let's say there are two people needing your organs, okay? The first one is someone who served you and your parents all their life. They love you, they try to make you happy, okay? In fact, let's say you have two sons. I think this one is a bit more complicated, but it sends the message across. Your first son is very loyal to you, believes that you have a right over them, tries to serve you, and if they make a mistake, they ask you for forgiveness. Your second son, you know what your second son tells you? Mom, Dad, you have no right over me. I don't even recognize any right. Anything you tell them, out the window. I don't care about you and your laws. Now they both need your organ. Okay? You can't save both, you can only save one. Who would you choose? I'm asking you as a mother, who would you choose? Huh? You can only choose one, remember. Only one. The obedient one. Why? Is that discrimination? Somebody tells you that's discrimination, what would you say? You know what the problem is if you choose the second one? If you chose the second one, you've betrayed justice. Because you've told basically your first son, all your years of obedience, they meant nothing for me in this case. You're stepping on justice if you give it to the second one. You get the idea? Now apply it to where we are right now. So if I have two recipients who need it, their life depends on it, obviously you give the priority to the one who believes in God, to the one who's a Muslim. That's one way of looking at it.
Thank you, Syed. Another question here. Bearing in mind the Ali bin Yaqteen principle, how far do we go in giving the benefit of the doubt to Shia political figures today? For example, Mamdani, Mehdi Hassan, they can help the Shia, but still have to sometimes align with anti-Shia and even anti-Muslim policies. So what to extent do we support them or go as far as giving them the benefit of the doubt?
First of all, I would look at their history and track record. Whenever you want to evaluate someone, brothers and sisters, even if it's your friend, don't judge them based on what they did on the spot today. If I have a friend who's got 20 years of history of goodness, loyalty, decency, today he made a mistake, do I just throw out those 20 years out the window and say, you know what, you're a terrible person? Is that fair? Would you like to be judged like that? 20 years you're a good person, you slip today, that's it. You're excommunicated. You're canceled. That's not fair. Islam tells you, look at the goodness in people. Don't expect people to be infallible. Look at their track record. If this person generally, more often than not, sides with justice, sides with the haqq, sides with the truth, and today, for whatever reason, let's say they said something questionable, don't just omit that history. Give them the benefit of the doubt. I would go with that Islamic principle. So look at their history and try to weigh them in other areas. If you see that naturally, normally, they side with justice, they speak up for the oppressed, realize that this is their foundation. Today, if they did something I can't explain, something questionable, okay, maybe that's a mistake, maybe they have an excuse. Give them the benefit of the doubt. I really get disturbed when I see someone who's got a legacy in defending the truth and being the voice of justice. Because of one slip, we immediately excommunicate them. I don't think that's fair. And that's not the path of Ahlul Bayt. The Ahlul Bayt would forgive their companions. Yes, if someone is arrogant, they're justifying their bad, and they're continuing that bad, that changes the equation. As long as it's not the case, I would accept that Ali ibn Yaqtin principle, as long as I know their history and I see that they consistently side with justice. But they're not infallible, they make mistakes. That's how I would evaluate them. Yes, if I see a politician who's consistently on the other side, consistently getting caught up in acts of corruption, consistently taking bribes, consistently betraying justice, then yeah, at that point, obviously, I would have a stance against them. I think that's how you should navigate it.
Understood. Thank you, Syed. Just one last question now as we reach the end. This one, Salam Sayyidina.
Alaykum as-salam.
May Allah bless you for delivering yet another captivating lecture on the life of Sultan Abul Hassan. As we have seen in recent times, there have been great tragedies that have befallen Shia countries, namely Lebanon and Iran predominantly, subsequently causing some Sunnis as well as non-believers to now become curious about the Shia faith. What hadith or saying or teaching or fatwa would you say is something that we could impart on people like this, that they would not be able to not necessarily refuse it, but would quench their curiosity about what they've been misguided to and about in regards to the Shia faith? Jazakallah khair.
Today we have a very unique opportunity. Many eyes in the world are on us today. Because of the geopolitical events, because of the war that happened. People want to know, who are we? What do we represent? Al-Imam Ali ibn Musa ar-Rida alayhi salam gives us the answer to this question. The Imam alayhi salam tells us, teach people mahasina kalamina. Teach people the beautiful teachings of us Ahlul Bayt. For if people know the beauty of our teachings, لَاتَّبَعُونَ, they would follow us. You know why today the world is not following Ahlul Bayt? They don't know the Ahlul Bayt. They're not aware of their teachings. They've not been exposed to their teachings. So today, because you see that thirst and curiosity, we have to first start by knowing the beautiful teachings of Quran and Ahlul Bayt. How many of us know about the teachings of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam? Uyun Akhbar al-Rida has thousands. Other books have thousands. How many do I know? Right now, if you ask someone in any community, can you tell me 5 beautiful things you know that Imam al-Rida alayhi salam taught? We'll struggle to find 1 or 2. That means I've not done my own research. So I invite our communities to truly learn the beautiful teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. If people hear those teachings, believe me, they'll be inspired. They'll be inspired with the spirituality of the Ahlul Bayt, the knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt, the science of the Ahlul Bayt. You have so many beautiful scientific references that people will appreciate today, that you'll find in the Ahlul Bayt. So that person who's approaching you, try to gauge their background. See what is it that could potentially interest them. Is it something spiritual I can share? Something legal I can share? Is it something scientific that I can share, and that's how you attract them to the path of Ahlul Bayt. Once I was with a group of brothers and they were discussing music. They were not religious and they were not interested in religion either. In fact, they considered religion to be backwards. Well, we hear that sentiment today. So they were discussing music. They're like, we all listen to music, we're addicted to music. So what? What's the harm in that? What's the big deal? So here I just used one scientific reference from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam that transformed them on the spot. Amir al-Mu'mineen has a beautiful hadith in which he says, وَكَثْرَةُ الْإِسْتِمَاعِ إِلَى الْغِنَاءِ يُورِثُ الْفَقْرِ. Prolonged exposure to singing and music leads to poverty. Now, what type of poverty is the Imam referring to? Not financial poverty. He's referring to spiritual and psychological poverty, meaning your mental and psychological state. So I told them, go on right now, go on the internet, go on Google. Tell me, the people with the highest rates of depression and anxiety and suicide in society, who are they? So they Googled it. Guess what the results were? Singers and musicians. Why? According to a UK British study, it found that 19%, this is a few years ago, 19% of the British population, they struggle with depression. So 1 out of 5 Britons, they suffer from depression, which is pretty significant. Then they looked at subcategories, doctors, engineers, lawyers, teachers, and they looked at musicians and singers. Do you know what the rate of depression and suicide was among singers and musicians? 73%. That means out of every 4 musicians and singers, 3 either suffer from chronic depression, anxiety, or suicidal thoughts. See, share that with the people. Those people's like, wow, Imam Ali alayhi salam was aware of this 14 centuries ago. They stopped overnight listening to music and they appreciated religion. So just try to assess their background, where they're coming from. Find something beautiful from the Imams to share with them. And believe me, the words of Ahlul Bayt is nur, it's light. It will interact with their soul. It's truly amazing. Even the Quran. We've neglected the Quran. Memorize 20, 50, 100 verses of the Quran that inspire people about Allah's forgiveness, Allah's mercy, Allah's compassion, about the history of the human being, the nature of the human being, about taking care of your family, don't backbite, don't mock one another. Memorize these verses. You'd be surprised how verses awaken the soul. And I'll conclude with this. There's a British convert, very interesting, trying to recall his name, Hamza Mayat. You can Google him. He speaks about why he became a Muslim. So his Muslim name is Hamza. He had another British name. I forgot what his original name was. Hamza says, you could Google his story. It's very interesting. He says, one day in London, I went to a supermarket, a grocery store, and I saw a Muslim lady in hijab. So we had a discussion on religion, and I mocked God and religion. She told me, don't mock God. Don't attack God. He's like, what's going to happen if I do? The worst thing is he'll take me to hell. Okay. My skin will burn in hell for one time. And then I will be desensitized, because when your skin burns, you lose the nerves. And that's it. One time pain, and then I won't suffer. He says, I said it mockingly. She told me, oh no, you've got it wrong. I told her how. He's like, God actually has a verse in the Quran about this. It's like, what do you mean? She read the verse to me. كُلَّمَا نَضِجَتْ جُلُودُهُمْ بَدَّلْنَاهُمْ جُلُودًا غَيْرَهَا. The people of hell, when their skin burns, God will cause their skin to regrow, and it gets burned again. And that continues for a long time. He's like, when I heard, I'm like, God has actually spoken about the scenario which I just mocked. He's like, yeah, that's in the Quran. He's like, then and there, on the spot, I said, I bear witness, there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Allahumma salli ala. Would you ever think that one day someone would become Muslim because of this ayah in the Quran? Subhanallah. It's the word of Allah and Ahl Bayt. Just share the beautiful teachings with your community.
Thank you, Syed. That concludes the question and answer session. Thank you all for attending, submitting your questions. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Jazakumullah khairah, brothers and sisters. Thank you for your participation. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.